Thank you, Ms. Eamon. First of all, please accept my compliments and appreciation for such a thorough and enlightening talk we just witnessed by Professor Zamir Ahmad Awan. It is always an intellectual pleasure to listen to. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
And we shall have the question answer session at the end. And now we shall be having another panel discussion. And the panelists today I'm having with me is Ms. Hina Habib, Zamir Asadi Saab, and Khizr Zaman Saab. So Professor Zamir talked about the sustainable development and how Pakistan as a country can benefit from it. So, ladies and gentlemen, how to make sustainable development? It's important for even developed nations. Like it's also relevant and important for the developed world. We saw collapse of Soviet Union because its development was not sustainable. So, as a student of history, I could talk about many civilizations that could not maintain their sustainable development. The case was interestingly built by our worthy guest speaker, Professor Zamir, about how China wants its neighboring countries to prosper and share the benefits of prosperity. That's why China wants all neighboring and developing countries to go together and attain same level of happiness and opportunities in life. Professor Zamir talked about Belt and Road Initiative and its benefit to the common man and the masses, and how China's initiative is helping common people. And 149 countries, mostly developing countries, are part of this initiative. Professor Zamir talked about the Chinese approach, that they not only want to provide people with the fish, but they want to provide them with the skill that how to catch the fish. So some powerful ideas shared by Professor Zamir, and that really sets the tone for our today's session. Now I would hand over the floor to our next panelist, Ms. Hina Habib. Ms. Hina Habib, if you are with us.
Anji, I am here with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Saab, for enlightening us with your views and your vast experience on China. I'll start that I think sustainable development and global sustainable development is a joint effort. It should be a joint effort, and every country should foresee with this perspective. No country can face global challenges alone. Disaster like the COVID-19 pandemic and the climate action failure and the wars around the world has shown that lack of global cooperation and multilateralism are true barriers to overcome not the technological, adaptive, or other challenges. So the global development initiative put forward by the China after Belt and Road Initiative, basically it was according to them a remobilization of world development cooperation and reaffirmation of the people-oriented concept. The initiative is a public good provided or seen by the China and serves as an effective platform for all parties to align their development policies and deeper practical cooperation. So the key features adopted by China are that has adopted by China and that are equitable resources, equitable access of resources, and protecting and managing natural resources as well. And now, under the present circumstances in the present world, realizing the importance of digitalization, prioritizing the digital inclusion is also something that we should learn from China, that they have included in it. So when it comes to building sustainable future, we can take the example of China, of course, because China is the world leader in the sustainable investment. Beijing has invested internally close to $400 billion in domestic green technologies since 2017, more than twice that of entire European Union. An additional 250 billion on global projects. China created world's first taxonomy on sustainable investment, which is now global gold standard and impact investment. Public transportation in numerous cities like southern city of Shenzhen runs entirely electrical on electrical vehicles. The government, so the Chinese government also focus on the concept of innovations, a critical area that needed if for normal going to have a technology. At the largest developing country, China is committed to international responsibilities. Over the last 3 decades, now we'll see that how China has progressed and what we can learn from China. China managed to harness increasing participation in global value chain and become it was a processing hub, and later transformed that hub into an innovation center and a global supplier of research and development. Technology intensive parts and components in its experience offers important lessons for other developing countries like Pakistan and all other countries in Asia and Africa and any other area struggling to climb up the ladders in the international division of labor and transform their productive structure. Now look at how what were the key principles adopted by China when China was doing its own development, and at what China has done. It allows applies and now it also focus its foreign policy and global development plans based on its own experience. China invariably took strategic decisions suitable to its level of development and also based on principles of gradualism and experimentation. So they experimented first and then implemented their formula to at a comprehensive and extensive level. So means that you use the pilot provinces to test new policy measures and then convert those measures at a larger scale. In the last 20 years, for example, economic zones like Shenzhen were gradually expanded to 14 coastal cities and more peripheral region. In the 21st century, China has continued promoting development of industrial parks and a bonded zone strategy even more vigorously. And free trade zones from Shanghai to Tianjin and Guangdong, Fujian to Hainan Island and Shandong and Hebei provinces. So they what they did that exploited its abundance of labor and relatively low cost to forge a comparative advantage in production, processing, and assembly activities, which facilitated its integration into international production network. China's integration into global value chain and rapid economic growth is its infrastructure such as transportation, energy, power grid infrastructure is critical to improve the business environment, promote inter-regional coordination. So China has made great progress in information and communication infrastructure as well. And China's Belt and Road initiative exemplifies the role that why communication infrastructure is very important, and the closer integration and cooperation among developing countries that can play and overcome the obstacles that are in the global present in the global south or developing countries. Digital economy has is very important, and that played a key role in building China's export competitiveness and its industrialization effort. With a couple of decades, China has emerged from a global assembly hub to a digital, as I said earlier, to a digital giant as well. So from developing its own global and regional value chains, in 2016, China's digital economy valued US 3.4 trillion, accounting for 30% of the total GDP, comparing favorably to many developing countries like Brazil, India. Digital economy contributing 20%, 18%, and but it is far above than Brazil and India. China's digital transformation has put China above India and Brazil. The size of China's digital economy is only second to the US digital economy and bigger than rest of the other countries. The rise of Alibaba is an example, successful example of digital commerce. Now, while learning and adopting, learning from China success, I think it is very important that what China did, that China's uh, developing projects, especially after the COVID-19 shock and the global financial crisis, Chinese foreign assistance is provided mostly on a state-to-state basis and concentrated in physical infrastructure construction, and aimed at continuous access to natural resources. So as many things were already explained by Zamir Sahab, Professor Zamir Sahab. So I'm not going to do into the details, but my focus is that there are many myths that are at the moment associated with the Chinese lending and Chinese international support. There are misconceptions that China supports the big projects, the white elephant projects, the burden and bridges. In reality, evidences suggest that Chinese financial infrastructure projects have had positive economic effects for many developing countries. And these successful measures in miles of railway and kilowatts of energy across Asia, Africa, Latin America have posed a challenge. It's now an inspiration for many, and many policymakers in the Western world, they are also feeling that they need to learn from this. And I think on basis of this, they should not pose that China's money or China's debt is a debt trap. Now the question is whether China's is really China's debt is really a debt trap. I'll share a few three views from the leaders. Sri Lankan ambassador to China, he said that public on multiple occasions that he said on multiple occasions that that is not China's offering to lend money to Sri Lanka, but country welcomes Chinese investment and financing. And blaming the debt problem on China loan is inaccurate. And Kenyan president, he said that his name is Uhuru Kenyatta. He said that debt problem is essence doesn't concern the occurrence of debt, but the use of it. So currently only 60% of the population in Kenya have access to electricity, and that's why we want loan. So ambassador also stressed that it's groundless to call the Hambantota port project a debt trap project, since it's hard to get back all the cost for such a large scale project within 2 to 3 years, and more port related business in developing rapidly. A number of latest studies were also conducted in Europe and United States, and that shown that there is no evidence of so-called debt trap. There is not a single case in which China takes advantage of other countries. So difficulties in paying. And no, I think the debt trap or the global debt is a global problem. It's not something that we can associate with China. I think it's a debt trap narrative that is working against China. Some facts here: the World Bank's international debt, according to World Bank debt statistics 2020, that demonstrated 80% of the Sri Lankan foreign debt owed to multilateral institutions such as World Bank and Wall Street investors. Its debt to China is only 10% of its total foreign debt. So here, when you divide or see things like this, you can see that what is going on. A level in Sri Lankan debt to China owes only total of its foreign debt, a level on a par with that to Japan. Evidently claimed that China loans to Sri Lanka is a debt problem is far from true. According to Chinese, there's no doubt, or according to many of the economic problems, they see that, that debt problem or debt issue that deserves a global attention, and there's a global coordinated efforts which should be put, and it shouldn't be politicized just for a narrative purpose or I think the thing that was happening in the Cold War as well, the containment strategy, the debt is, there should be not like this. The debt to me is an investment and debt to you is a trap. So this is a typical example of the narrative, double standard narrative, I think. I think as a country or a developing country like Pakistan, there is some precautions that we should adopt, either blaming China that for its policies and everything. I think when we are adopting some policies, what we need to do is that we need to realize the ground realities, and we need to put our own house in order rather than complaining other countries. So as we know that China highlighted developing countries' distinct challenges, and China's we can learn from China, and therefore request policymakers in Pakistan and any developing countries that we should realize and take into account the realities and ground realities in our own country. We should take the lessons but from China, but put those lessons according to our needs in our own house. So China is currently developing its own digital technology, and we can join force and strengthen regional cooperation, and we can move along with China on this. And but what we can do that as a developing country, we can take the help, and we can realize that how we can move forward, and we can take the example from we can take finances from the regional institutions, banks that can design, execute, and providing finance for the complex, large-scale cross-border projects. China's policies for developing countries, ground realities is imperative. We need to take these realities into consideration and serious consideration, rather criticizing China. And we should remember that sustainable development, as I said earlier at the start of this discussion, that sustainable development is a joint human endeavor, and all countries together with China, together with China, by learning through the experiences of China, that in a very short time they transformed themselves into a second largest world economy, and it's a miracle, and we should learn from it, and we should actively participate in international development cooperation, especially after the post-COVID global economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hina Habib. We were listening to your powerful voice, not only to your powerful voice, but also to your powerful ideas. So you talked about China as world leader in sustainable investment, and the comparison was drawn with the sustainable investment of European Union. Then you talked about China's journey to sustainable development was like first they experimented and then they implemented in the whole China. Like first they selected the provinces. You brought an example of the Shenzhen province into the discussion. Then you talked about China as how it is integrated into the global value chain. You talked about Alibaba, and then you talked about the myth of debt trap. Of course, there is no reality into it. West keeps talking about it, but there is no reality, and some objective research, as you said, has been conducted in the West, which kind of debunk those false narratives. And you said that it could be a global problem, but that's not the China-made problem. And then you talked about sustainable development as a joint human endeavor. So these were some of the powerful ideas shared by Ms. Hina Habib. Thank you so much for your nice ideas. Now I would